Well, hello YouTube. In this video, I want to show you how you can improve the efficiency of your precious APM in Age of Empires 2 by applying lists of commands. This is also known as shift queuing, because by holding shift, you can make a chain of commands for your units. In the original Age of Kings, you could only shift queue waypoints, which was mainly used to keep your scout active. However, the chain of move commands was only executed by releasing shift and then providing one more move command. This is cumbersome, and a scout that stands still wouldn't start moving until you finished the complete command queue. I advise you to enable the new command queue behavior in the settings and get accustomed to that, since it is much simpler, more intuitive, and the execution starts as soon as the first waypoint is set. In the definitive edition, you can actually queue various kinds of commands. First, I'll show you 6 ways to keep your economy running efficiently, and then 6 ways to use command queues for military or strategic purposes. Let's get into it. A command queue I use all the time is to give villagers a next task after constructing a building, since else the builders would go idle. I use it directly at the start to task the house builders to sheep next. I continue to use it for most buildings that I construct during my games. It is useful to become accustomed to applying this in standard game starts. On Nomad, for example, you could learn the habit to use a single villager to make a dock and instruct it to build a house, and then take the shorefish. Just get into the habit of always assigning a follow-up task when constructing a building, which is a simple way to prevent a lot of potential idle time. Another useful and often applicable command queue is for consuming animals efficiently. Without queuing your shepherds, they stand around confused for a few seconds before going to the next sheep, and they might take multiple sheep in parallel, which means more of the food will decay. It is not super important, since the shepherd won't go idle if you don't do this, but it is a good habit that can be applied in almost every game. It's often more important to command queue deer for your hunters, not only to minimize decay and walking time, but mainly to prevent them from going idle when the remaining deer are too far away or when finished. I have had quite some games where my hunters were idle for minutes, which can simply be prevented by shift queuing them to a tree after the last deer. Shift queuing to specific berries, trees or mines after building a drop-off point gives a minor efficiency improvement that can be applied in most games. You can ensure that 4 villagers neatly split up in 2 pairs on both sides of a mill. By queuing 2 or 3 berry patches, you can prevent the villagers from walking all around the mill once they finish a berry patch. The same can be applied for lumberjacks and miners. Mining camps should be built in a way that as many villagers as possible can work very close to the mining camp. Here is an example showing the best spot for this particular mine. To prevent building a mining camp and then walking around it, you can also command a villager to move to the opposite side of the desired mining camp location and then queue the construction, followed by the tile to mine from. By the way, by holding the Alt key, you can give a move command that will ignore the hitboxes of nearby resources. Setting a move command before constructing a building is actually my 4th hint. You can also use it to trap a villager, which means you can make better use of the available space around the drop-off building. Again, issue the move command while holding Alt, then queue the construction. In an older version of the game, a trapped villager would go idle after construction, but that isn't the case anymore in the current version, so queuing the tile to mine from after construction is not a necessity. Positioning a villager before construction can also be used to plug a hole in your wall without walling out your villager. The same trick can also be applied to prevent a villager from trapping itself in between constructed buildings. The 5th command queue for economy efficiency is one that can help lower or medium level players to not lose villagers to a boar. When getting in a boar, task the boar lure to the other side of the town center and then shift queue a garrison. If your attention is suddenly grabbed by something else, like an early drush on your wood line, and you forget about the boar, now at least you won't lose the villager to the boar. By the way, make sure that you give the boar lure an actual move command. Don't issue a resource drop-off at the town center, and don't click a straggler tree, since the game behavior still exists that the villager then prioritizes fighting the boar instead, and subsequently dies. Number 6 is also related to boars, which are mainly used on Nomad. On Nomad you usually build your TC next to wood, and early in the game you might get in a boar and need to assign some lumberjacks to take the boar. A pro might garrison the villagers, weaken the boar with the TC, and then finish it with the villagers. A safer and simpler way for a lot of players is to select the lumberjacks, then right-click the TC, and then shift-Q the boar. With these quick 2 commands, the lumberjacks will drop off their wood before shooting the boar, and after giving the 2 commands, you can attend to other things. And now on to the 6 ways in which command queuing can help with the military or strategic aspect of the game. The first one is simple and well known. Use waypoints for your scout to quickly explore the space around your town center, without having to babysit the scout all the time. I remember some pro saying that using waypoints for scouts is bad practice, but that's only the case when you are actually at the level where you can manage your eco and simultaneously attend to your scout all the time. If you are not on that level, then just give your scout a handful of waypoints each time, and reduce the number of waypoints over time when you get better at micromanaging. A command queue that I use often is for monks taking relics. Select the monk and order it to collect the relic, then shift queue it back to the monastery, such that it returns it automatically. You can queue the getting and returning of multiple relics in this way. If the monk is near the monastery, when you give the command, you can hit spacebar after right-clicking the relic to focus back on the monk, such that you can quickly shift queue on the monastery without having to click the minimap or panning too much. If there is enemy military on the shortest path between the monastery and the relic, you can also queue move commands in between to have the monk safely walk around a known danger. Shift queuing can also be used to order multiple attack commands. You could, for example, order your knights to take out the dangerous or expensive enemy units and then let them run away. In an example like this, you can often better micro your units manually and update your decision making based on how the fight evolves. However, there are cases in which it is really useful, like when you want to attack a group of archers with your skirmishers, but the enemy maneuvers a ram in front of his archers. By queuing a lot of archers as targets, the skirmishers will attack the archers and ignore the ram. To prevent overkill, when you have, for example, 20 or 30 skirmishers, you could select about half the group and assign them a new target queue. A fourth application of shift queuing is when you want to cut a path through a forest to launch a surprise attack, which is mainly useful for Black Forest. Instead of going back to your onager time after time, you can shift queue a set of trees and the onager will do the rest, while your attention can be elsewhere. This can also be done using trebuchets, but trebuchets only destroy one tree at a time, and it takes a bit more effort and precise clicking to target every tree in a line. The ballista elephant of the Khmer is the only unit that can destroy trees in Castle Age. It is almost as cumbersome as cutting with a trebuchet, but the elephant does it a bit quicker and with higher precision, and it sometimes destroys 2 trees in one shot. The fifth hint is to queue another command for a monk after performing a conversion. The most useful one is to shift queue a garrison, since then the monk will garrison directly after the conversion is successful. This gives your monks the best chance of survival while maximizing your conversions. If there is no nearby building to garrison in, you could also queue a move command to make them retreat afterwards. Another option that I recently saw in another video is to shift queue multiple conversions with a group of monks. If you have theocracy researched, then only one monk needs to rest while the others continue converting the next target. This is still less efficient than giving each monk its own target directly, but it might be more practically feasible. Number 6 is a bit situational, but can be a lifesaver. When your lumberjacks are chopping away a wood line that serves as part of your wall, you might look at it at some point and see that there soon will be an overchop. Instead of remembering to check for a hole later, you can select a villager and right-click the tree it is currently chopping, followed by shift-queuing a building to plug the gap that will occur once the tree is fully chopped up, followed by a command to chop another tree again. After finishing the tree, the villager will drop off the wood first and then construct the building. But having a hole for a few seconds is a much smaller risk than having it for minutes. These are my 12 tips for improving your gameplay using command queues. I ordered them from most to least important. If you want to start applying this, I suggest starting with my top 3 for economy and with the scout waypoints. Before you go, I have one funny and very situational bonus shift queue idea. Suppose your wall is under attack in feudal age and you want your villager to keep the repairs going. However, if the villager out-repairs the attackers, then it will stop repairing when the wall or building reaches maximum hit points, and soon afterwards the enemy could break in. While the building is damaged, you can shift queue to have your villager make a little walk and then repair again, and you can queue that up multiple times. Now the villager will keep repairing for much longer automatically. In practice, the enemy will likely target a different piece of wall quickly, or add archers to pick off repair villagers. But I find it neat that you can actually queue the same task multiple times using this little trick. That's it for this video. Be sportsmanlike and enjoy your games.